Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of a Labostix article. This audio podcast as part of a Helm and raid. This audio podcast as part of a Mayhem Tripper, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Labostix production. In this audio podcast, a little bit of an overview in regard to the study limitations, and the implications for practice as part of this peer review and published works from 2015. So the research involved a small sample size, so the findings are not generalizable. Young people with CKD were particularly challenging to recruit, with only one young person undergoing hemodialysis, and there were differences in ages across both cohorts, which bring about different findings since the coping strategies of a 12-year-old may differ from those of a 16-year-old. In around sort of the implications for practice, so young people with CKD stages 4 and 5 may not cope as well as those with earlier CKD due to the limitations associated with disease progression. In around physical activity. The psychological approach to coping proposes that young people with CKD may need to adjust both cognitive and social aspects of lives to meet the challenges of living with a chronic illness. Um, and in around this, there is some evidence works from the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, sort of retrospectively from 2011. The themes derived can prompt researchers and investigators to potentially develop a coping measure for a young CKD population. Additionally, it would be advantageous to look at how young people with CKD have developed own coping strategies through a longitudinal investigation to provide a pathway for development of a formal coping framework. This investigation highlights some of the insights and experiences of young people with CKD, and the findings could allow professionals in amongst pediatric nephrology to develop a guideline to complement clinical practice and strengthen coping strategies for young people with CKD. Further investigations on coping should focus on perceptions from parents and guardians. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast as part of a Labostix article. This audio podcast as part of a Helm and raid. This audio podcast as part of a Mayhem Trooper, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Labostix production.